Your Earthling beast defies all logic. The alien scientists are speechless. Quantum resonance. Zara Fleming clutched her specimen case as the transport pod descended through Novus's iridescent atmosphere. The alien metropolis spread beneath her like a geometric puzzle, crystalline structures interlaced with bioluminescent vegetation that defied Earth's botanical principles. 6 years of advanced xenobotany training, and still nothing had prepared her for the overwhelming reality of an alien world. Final approach to Luminar Science Academy, announced the transport's AI in the peculiarly melodic accent of the Nevusians. Please secure belongings before disembarking. She double-checked the environmental adapter clipped behind her ear, a tiny device that continuously analyzed and adjusted the atmospheric composition around her. Without it, the complex airborne biochemicals of Novus would trigger a massive immunological response in her human system. Fatal within minutes, according to her briefing materials. The transport doors dissolved rather than opened, revealing a platform that appeared to be made of living crystal. It pulsed with subtle patterns of light that responded to her footsteps. Fascinating, she murmured, kneeling to examine the surface. The crystalline structure is responding to pressure and heat signatures. How charmingly observant for a carbon-based organism, came a voice like wind through chimes. Zara stood quickly, nearly dropping her specimen case. The Nevusian standing before her was tall and willowy, with skin that seemed composed of translucent layers shifting between azure and violet. Where humans had hair, this being possessed what looked like delicate tendrils of light that floated as if underwater. You must be Dr. Fleming, the Nevusian said, eyes like polished opals blinking in a complex pattern. I am Thuron, head researcher of comparative evolutionary studies. Yes, that's me, Zara replied, extending her hand before remembering the briefing on Nevusian customs. She quickly withdrew it. Sorry, I forgot you prefer non-contact greetings. Thuron's head tilted at an angle that would have been uncomfortable for a human neck. Not merely preference, Dr. Fleming. Direct dermal contact between our species could trigger a cascade of bioelectric disruptions in my neural pathways. But your gesture is noted as an attempt at cultural accommodation. Right, Zara said, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. Thank you for hosting me at the Academy. The opportunity to study Nevusian photosynthetic organisms is beyond anything I could have hoped for. Thuron began walking, assuming she would follow. Your research proposal was unusual. Most off-world scientists request access to our technological achievements, not our plant life. Zara hurried to keep pace with Thuron's gliding movements. Plants are the foundation of all complex life. Understanding how they've evolved on different worlds gives us insights into the fundamental patterns of biology across the universe. A surprisingly holistic perspective from a species that still requires chemical combustion for interstellar travel, Thuron remarked. Zara bit back a retort. She'd been warned about Nevusian condescension. Their civilization was millennia beyond Earth's, having mastered energy manipulation at the quantum level when humans were still figuring out agriculture. We all evolve at our own pace, she said diplomatically. Indeed, Thuron's skin rippled with patterns that Zara couldn't interpret. Your quarters have been adapted for human physiology, oxygen levels adjusted, gravity compensated, and nutritional synthesizers programmed with your biochemical requirements. They pass through corridors that seem to be alive, shifting and reshaping themselves as beings moved through them. Other Nevusians they encountered regarded Zara with what she interpreted as scientific curiosity rather than warmth. Tomorrow we will begin orientation in the Xenobotanical Gardens, Thuron continued. I must admit, I've taken a personal interest in your research. The way plant life has developed on your planet through such inefficient processes presents fascinating evolutionary questions. Inefficient, Zara couldn't help but ask. Your Earth plants rely primarily on chlorophyll for photosynthesis, capturing only a narrow band of solar radiation. On Novus, our photosynthetic organisms developed quantum entanglement properties, allowing them to harness energy across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Zara's scientific mind raced with implications. That would revolutionize our understanding of biological energy systems. Yes, Thuron agreed, stopping before a doorway that hummed with soft energy. Which is why the Council approved your visit despite concerns about human contamination protocols. I assure you I'll follow all biosecurity measures, Zara said quickly. See that you do. Your species has a documented history of touching things you shouldn't. Before Zara could respond, the doorway melted away, revealing her quarters, a space that somehow blended alien geometry with recognizable furnishings. Rest cycle begins in 1 hour, Thuron said. The environmental system will simulate Earth's diurnal patterns. He paused, opal eyes scanning her with what seemed like genuine curiosity. May I ask you something, Dr. Fleming? Of course. Why did you choose to study life forms so different from yourself, when your own world contains sufficient biological mysteries? The question caught her off guard with its philosophical undertone. Because difference teaches us more than similarity ever could, she answered honestly, and because beauty isn't confined to what we already understand. Thuron's light tendrils pulsed briefly. An unexpectedly poetic response. Perhaps there is more complexity to human cognition than our studies suggest. With that ambiguous comment, he departed, the doorway reforming behind him. Left alone, Zara sank onto the bed-like platform, which adjusted its density to her comfort level. What have I gotten myself into? She whispered to the room. The xenobotanical gardens defied description. Structures that were neither fully plant nor crystal curved overhead, creating a cathedral-like space filled with life forms that challenged Zara's fundamental understanding of biology. This specimen, Thuron explained, indicating what appeared to be a floating network of luminous filaments, converts not just light but gravitational waves into metabolic energy. Zara circled the organism, scanner in hand. The efficiency must be extraordinary. Approximately 98.7% conversion rate, Thuron confirmed, compared to Earth plants' meager 1–2%. But our plants achieve something remarkable with that efficiency, Zara pointed out. They've sustained complex life for billions of years despite their limitations. An interesting perspective, Thuron said, though his tone suggested scientific observation rather than agreement. Perhaps there is value in studying evolutionary constraints as well as achievements. Over the following days, Zara found herself constantly oscillating between awe at Navusian advancement and defensiveness about Earth's biological systems. Thuron remained a puzzling companion, clinically interested in her research yet dismissive of her species' capabilities. One evening, as she was documenting a particularly unusual fungal analog, Thuron approached with what appeared to be a container of some sort. Your work pattern exceeds standard parameters, he noted. You've been in the research sector for 14.3 hours without nutrition intake. Zara looked up, blinking tired eyes. I lost track of time. This mycelial network has quantum properties I've never encountered before. Indeed, its neural configuration bears some resemblance to primitive consciousness. Thuron set down the container, which opened to reveal something steaming. I've programmed the synthesizer with a human beverage your records indicate you consume regularly. Zara peered at it. Is that coffee? A reasonable approximation, adjusted for optimal cognitive stimulation without the addiction-forming properties. She smiled despite herself. That's actually thoughtful of you. Merely ensuring research efficiency, Thuron replied, though his skin shimmered with an unfamiliar pattern. As she sipped the not-quite coffee, which tasted better than the real thing, Zara gestured to her findings. I've been comparing the quantum entanglement properties in your plants to some theoretical models we've developed for Earth ecosystems. Thuron's interest seemed piqued. Earth plants do not possess quantum capabilities. Not individually, no. But we've observed quantum coherence in photosynthetic energy transfer, and there's emerging evidence that plant root systems create networks that might operate on quantum principles at a macro level. For the first time, Thuron appeared genuinely intrigued rather than politely condescending. Show me your data. Zara pulled up her research models, explaining how Earth's forests created vast underground networks that shared resources and information in ways that defied classical explanations. Fascinating, Thuron murmured, light tendrils moving rapidly in what she was beginning to recognize as excitement. You're suggesting collective quantum behavior emerging from individually limited organisms. Exactly, evolution found a workaround. Instead of developing quantum capabilities within individual plants, Earth's ecosystems developed them through interconnection. Thuron's opal eyes blinked in their complex pattern. This challenges several of our assumptions about evolutionary pathways. Their discussion lasted hours, with Thuron asking increasingly specific questions about Earth's ecosystem networks. For the first time, Zara felt a genuine exchange of ideas rather than an implicit comparison of their species' achievements. As their conversation wound down, Thuron made an unexpected proposal. Tomorrow, I would like to show you something few offworlders have seen, our primary research initiative. I'd be honored, Zara replied, surprised by the offer. The next morning, Thuron led her deep into the academy complex, through security barriers that responded to his bioelectric signature. They entered a vast chamber where dozens of Navusians worked around what appeared to be a miniature ecosystem encased in quantum fields. "This is Project Genesis," Thuron explained. "We're attempting to create a fully self-sustaining biosphere that can be transported to dead worlds, instantly establishing complex life where none could evolve naturally." Zara stared in wonder, terraforming in a box. "A crude but not inaccurate description," Thuron acknowledged. "However, we've encountered persistent instabilities in the system. The quantum entanglement matrix that sustains energy flow keeps collapsing when we increase complexity beyond certain thresholds." Zara circled the project, her mind racing. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to a nearby console. After a moment's hesitation, Thuron nodded. She input a series of calculations, creating a simulation based on Earth's forest mycelial networks. What if the problem isn't insufficient quantum coherence but insufficient chaos? Earth systems maintain stability through controlled randomness, tiny fluctuations that actually prevent larger system collapse. Thuron watched as her model ran alongside their existing simulations. Where the Navusian system showed increasing oscillations leading to breakdown, her hybrid model stabilized into a new equilibrium state. "This is," Thuron's voice trailed off, light tendrils pulsing rapidly. "Primitive human intuition," Zara suggested with a small smile. "Evolutionary insight," Thuron corrected, something like respect entering his voice. "Perhaps our species have more to teach each other than I anticipated, Dr. Fleming." As other Navusian scientists gathered around, expressions of surprised interest rippling across their luminous features, Zara realized she had bridged a gap far greater than interstellar space. The gap between two fundamentally different ways of understanding life itself. For the first time since her arrival, she felt not like a specimen being studied, but like a colleague with something valuable to contribute. And judging by the excited patterns dancing across Thuron's skin, this unexpected collaboration was just beginning. Harmonic convergence. News of Zara and Thuron's breakthrough spread through the Luminar Science Academy with the efficiency of quantum entanglement itself. By the following morning, Zara found herself the subject of intense scrutiny from Navusian scientists who had previously regarded her with polite indifference at best. "They're starring again," she murmured to Thuron as they entered the main research hub, a vast chamber where holographic data streams flowed like luminous rivers through the air. "They are processing cognitive dissonance," Thuron replied, his skin cycling through subtle patterns of blue and violet. "The notion that a human could provide insight into quantum biological systems challenges certain assumptions." "You mean the assumption that humans are clever pets at best?" Zara suggested with a raised eyebrow. Thuron's light tendrils pulsed in what she had come to recognize as mild embarrassment. "I would have phrased it more diplomatically, but essentially correct." Before Zara could respond, they were approached by a Navusian whose skin bore the deep indigo markings of high scientific authority. Unlike Thuron's flowing movements, this being's motions were precise and angular. "Head researcher Thuron," the Navusian acknowledged with a formal gesture. "The Council requests immediate clarification regarding your unauthorized collaboration protocols." "Chief Arbiter Vex," Thuron responded, his posture shifting subtly. "May I present Dr. Zara Fleming, whose insights have proven invaluable to Project Genesis." Vex's opal eyes flicked to Zara, then away, as if her presence was an awkward formality rather than the subject of discussion. "The human's contribution has been noted. However, integration of primitive biological models into our quantum frameworks violates established research progression paths." Zara opened her mouth to object, but felt Thuron's energy field pulse against her in a clear warning. "With respect, Chief Arbiter," Thuron said carefully, "the preliminary results speak for themselves. The stability increase in Genesis framework exceeds 47%. Results achieved through methodological irregularities cannot be considered valid," Vex countered. "The Council requires your presence for review, alone." This last word was accompanied by a dismissive glance toward Zara. After Vex departed in a shimmer of teleportation energy, Zara turned to Thuron. "They're shutting down our research because it was my idea." "Not shutting down, questioning." Thuron's skin had darkened to a troubled shade. "Our society values order and progression. New ideas are welcome, but they must come through proper channels building upon established knowledge. And humans jumping ahead several evolutionary steps in your theoretical understanding doesn't fit the proper channel," Zara concluded. "It creates complications." Thuron's light tendrils moved in a pattern she hadn't seen before. Wait here, continue your analysis of the mycorrhizal network analogs. I will address the Council's concerns. Hours passed with no word from Thuron. Zara buried herself in work, expanding her models based on Earth's forest communication networks. The implications were staggering. If she was right, Navusian technology could help terraform dying ecosystems back on Earth, potentially reversing centuries of environmental damage. She was so absorbed in her calculations that she didn't notice the laboratory's subtle shift in energy, until a cool voice spoke directly behind her. Your presence creates disharmony. Zara turned to find three Navusian scientists regarding her with what could only be described as scientific disapproval. The speaker, taller than the others with skin that shimmered a pale green, continued to observe her as one might a particularly troublesome specimen. I'm simply doing the research I was invited here to conduct, Zara replied, keeping her voice steady. You were invited to observe and learn, not to interfere with advanced methodologies beyond your species' evolutionary capacity, said a second Navusian. Last I checked, scientific discovery doesn't recognize species boundaries, Zara countered. The data supports my approach. That's how science works, isn't it? Or does the scientific method work differently on Novus? The third Navusian moved closer, examining her with unnerving intensity. Fascinating. You genuinely believe your primitive intuitive leaps equal our millennia of quantum understanding. Not equal, Zara said carefully. Different. Sometimes an outside perspective sees patterns that familiarity obscures. An interesting hypothesis, said the first Navusian. However, the Council has suspended all integration of your models pending review. We have been instructed to reset the Genesis parameters to standard configurations. You can't do that, Zara protested. The system will destabilize again. You've seen the projections. Projections based on unverified theoretical frameworks, the Navusian responded dismissively. Please remove yourself from the primary research area. Before Zara could argue further, the laboratory door dissolved, revealing Thuron. His normally luminous skin seemed dimmed, and his movements lacked their usual fluid grace. The Council has reached a decision, he announced without preamble. Dr. Fleming's research will continue, but under strict supervision. All applications to Project Genesis must undergo standard validation protocols before implementation. The other Navusians departed with what Zara interpreted as satisfaction, leaving her alone with Thuron. That's ridiculous bureaucracy and you know it, she said the moment they were alone. Their standard validation protocols will take months, maybe years. It is our way, Thuron replied, though something in his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. Order and progression ensure. They ensure you never have to admit that a primitive species might have something valuable to teach you, Zara interrupted. Thuron's light tendrils flickered in what might have been agitation. That is not, he stopped, reconsidering. Perhaps there is some truth to your assessment. The Council's decision was conservative. Zara softened her approach. What happened in there, Thuron? His opal eyes met hers directly. I challenged certain foundational assumptions about evolutionary hierarchies. It was not well received. You defended my research. I defended scientific integrity, he corrected, though his skin rippled with complicated patterns. But the discussion raised questions I had not previously considered about our species' presumption of superiority. A warning alarm cut through their conversation, bathing the laboratory in pulsing red light. What's happening? Zara asked as Thuron rushed to a console. His light tendrils moved with alarming speed as he analyzed the incoming data. Critical instability in the Genesis core. They've attempted to revert to the original parameters without proper transition protocols. The floor beneath them trembled slightly. That can't be good, Zara observed. If the quantum matrix collapses completely, the resulting energy discharge could damage a significant portion of the research sector. Thuron's voice remained calm, but his skin had paled to an ashen blue. They've locked us out of the primary controls. Zara joined him at the console, studying the cascading failure indicators. Can we access the secondary systems, the environmental regulators? Possibly, but we don't need to fix the whole system, Zara explained quickly. We just need to introduce enough controlled chaos to prevent catastrophic harmonization. Thuron's eyes widened in understanding. Like your forest model, small fluctuations to prevent system-wide collapse. Working together, they bypassed the main controls, using Thuron's access to environmental systems to introduce subtle variations in temperature, humidity, and gravitational density throughout the Genesis chamber. It's not enough, Thuron said after several tense minutes. The quantum entanglement is still accelerating toward collapse. Zara thought desperately, the mycelial analogs, can you activate them without council approval? They're considered non-essential research specimens, so yes, but turn them all on full communication mode. Thuron hesitated only briefly before executing her request. Throughout the Genesis chamber, networks of luminous filaments began to glow, pulsing with increasing intensity as they established connections with each other. "What are you doing?" Chief Arbiter Vex demanded, materializing in the laboratory with several other council members. "Saving your research," Zara replied without looking up from her calculations, "and possibly this entire wing of your academy." On the monitors, the catastrophic resonance patterns began to stabilize as the mycelial networks introduced precisely the kind of controlled irregularity that Zara's models had predicted. The warning alarms faded to a cautionary yellow, then ceased entirely. "Impossible," whispered one of the council members, staring at the readings. "The system should have collapsed." "Not impossible," Thuron corrected, "simply outside our established theoretical framework." He turned to face his superiors, his posture straighter than Zara had ever seen it. "Dr. Fleming's approach has now saved Project Genesis twice. Perhaps it is time we reconsidered our assumptions about evolutionary advancement." Vex's opal eyes narrowed. "This incident will require extensive review." "Review all you want," Zara said, feeling a new confidence in her voice. "The data doesn't lie. Sometimes progress doesn't follow a linear path. Sometimes it comes from unexpected connections." In the tense silence that followed, she became aware that Thuron had moved to stand beside her, not in front as a shield or behind as an authority, but alongside her as an equal. 3 weeks later, Zara stood on an observation platform overlooking the redesigned Genesis chamber. Below, Navusian scientists worked alongside holographic representations of colleagues from 5 other worlds, including Earth. The project had been officially reconstituted as a multi-species initiative, with Zara and Thuron named as co-directors. "The Council is still processing their cognitive dissonance," Thuron remarked, joining her at the railing. His skin glowed with a vibrant azure that she had come to associate with satisfaction. "Some of the elder members have requested temporary sabbatical to meditate on evolutionary theory." Zara smiled. Translation: they're sulking because humans aren't as primitive as they thought. A simplified but not entirely inaccurate assessment. Thuron's light tendrils moved in what she now recognized as amusement. "Though I prefer to frame it as a paradigm expansion, our species evolved different strengths, your adaptive chaos, our quantum harmony, neither superior, both essential." Below them, the Genesis ecosystem pulsed with healthy activity, Earth-inspired mycorrhizal networks intertwining with Navusian quantum crystals, in a symbiosis that neither world could have created alone. "The first deployment is scheduled for next month," Thuron continued. "A dead moon in the Cygnus sector will be our test case. If successful, we can begin restoration of damaged ecosystems across multiple worlds." "Including Earth?" Zara asked hopefully. "Your planet is first on the list after the test case," Thuron confirmed. "Though I must warn you, I have requested permission to accompany the deployment team." Zara raised an eyebrow. "You want to visit Earth? I thought you found our gravity oppressive and our atmosphere chaotic." "Both true," he acknowledged. "However, my research now requires first-hand observation of primitive," he caught himself, "of differently evolved natural systems, and perhaps," his skin shifted to a shade she had never seen before, something like the sunset on Earth. "Perhaps I have developed a scientific interest in human culture beyond its biological aspects." "Scientific interest, huh?" Zara felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the environmental controls. "Well, as Earth's leading expert on Navusian biology, I suppose I could show you around, for science, of course." "For science," Thuron agreed, his opal eyes swirling with colors that spoke more eloquently than words. Between them, the air shimmered with what might have been static electricity, or perhaps something more quantum in nature. 2 different evolutionary paths finding unexpected harmony in the space between stars. In the Genesis chamber below, a new kind of ecosystem continued to grow, neither fully Earth nor fully Navusian, but something entirely new, proof that sometimes the most beautiful things in the universe emerge not from isolation, but from connection across the greatest of distances.